We're on the last section of the access model, and this section is support. So we're wondering who supports this and is there scientific evidence to support the claims that the author is making? The first question is the content on the website supported by appropriate research? What this really is asking is if the author is using scientific data or research in the field that they're discussing to support what they're saying. This is important because if the website doesn't include where they got their information, we don't have any way to verify that the information is accurate. And we also want to make sure that the information we're reading about is always based on scientific fact, not on somebody's opinion or personal experience. To find out if the content of this website is supported by appropriate research, we can look through the article and as we read, see if the author is citing or referring to certain studies or scientific research that's been done. Now, as we mentioned before, this website doesn't do a good job of including those things. So I'll show you an example of where to look for that in a moment. But another place that you can look is in the references or the resources section. So down here, we do have a link for resources, and this is going to give us some more information about these topics, but it might also be explaining where the author got their information from. So here are some other examples of this section. So we looked at this journal article before. Down at the bottom is that references, sometimes called bibliography or works cited or citations or resources. And these are all of the places that the author of this journal got their information from. So there's a lot of research that they included in their study. Another example here on this medlineplus.gov site, down at the bottom, is references. So these are two references that the author used to inform themselves about this topic so they could write this article. So in my checklist, I want to make a note for myself that the teenshealth.org site doesn't do a very good job of identifying the studies that were done about healthy eating, although it does list a couple of websites as resources. So I wouldn't check this one off myself because I'm not totally sure that these resources are where the author got their information. I think they might just be resources for more information. And the author certainly isn't listing any specific research that's been done. And that's what we're asking for here. The next question for support is the content or the information on the website supported by other reputable or reliable resources? We want to make sure that other reliable people or organizations agree with the information that's being presented in our article and support the organization that we're looking at. That helps us feel that we can trust it and that it's accurate. So again, we can start by reading through the article and seeing if there are citations or references to certain studies. As we know, this article doesn't include that. We can look for a works cited or a references list or a resources list to see if other organizations have said the same thing. We can also read the article and compare the information that we found with other resources like we did under accuracy. Another thing that's pretty valuable is to check to see if there are organizations or groups that partner with the website that you're looking at. So for teenshealth.org, they actually have a link here that says partners. And a lot of times partners are organizations that help financially support a website, but not always. Like, for example, this is a list of educational partners. So as we look through this portion of the website, it actually talks about some of the doctors that work with kids' health and teens' health to get information on their website. And so there's a lot of healthcare providers. These are hospitals and clinics that where the doctors of these organizations work with teenshealth.org to get information on their website. So that's another support that is used on the Teens Health site. So I want to make some notes here because there's quite a bit of information to answer this question. So yeah, the content, the information on the site is supported by other reputable sources. We see the same information on other reliable sites, .govs, .orgs. We also know that the Nemours Institution supports the work that teenshealth.org does. Okay, so one of their partners that they work with is the Nemours Institution. And then another thing that I've found as I've been doing some research is that on medlineplus.gov, which is a reputable government site, they often refer people to teenshealth.org for more information. So this is a search that I did on the medlineplus.org site about diet and teens. And we can see here that Kids Health or teenshealth.com is being referenced quite a bit. So that means that the medlineplus.gov site recognizes that the Kids Health site is a reputable one. So I would check this one off because I do see that the information is confirmed by other sources and also that it's supported by both Medline Plus and the Nemours Institution. Okay, we're on to the last question for support. The question is the website supported or funded by reputable and reliable sources? And remember that funded is where the organization or the website gets their money, either to pay for the website itself or to pay for the work that the organization does. It's sometimes not clear. The reason why this is important is because it helps us to determine if there's any bias or agenda or hidden motives present. So we want to make sure that the people and organizations who are funding a website or a group are reputable and that we can trust that when they pay for something, they're not expecting something else in return. So there are a couple places to look for that information on your website. First of all, if you look at the bottom of the website, you might be able to look in the About Us section to just learn a little bit about the mission and where they get their funding. So if you read the About Us section, you might be able to find out more about where they get their money or where they get their support in different ways. So this organization is a nonprofit organization, and they actually have partnerships with different medical institutions where doctors volunteer their time to write and review on this website. You can also look to see if there's any type of partners, or sometimes there will be a funding link within the article, either at the bottom or at the top. So this one doesn't have any information on funding, but it does have that partners page. Sometimes it might say affiliations or sponsors. Those are all words to look out for when you're answering this last question of the access model. So if we look at partners, we can find out more about who partners with them and think about what their relationship is to see if there might be a bias. So as I finish this out, I'm going to take some notes to remind myself that this organization is partnered with Nemours, which is a nonprofit organization devoted to keeping kids healthy. I also found out that the Kids Health site does take donations to stay afloat and to do their work. And a lot of times that is totally fine. When you take donations, you might be using them for good causes. We can't always be sure. So it's just something to check into further if you've got questions. So I know that the Nemours site, after doing a little bit of research, is a really reputable site. So because they really work with them and they do a lot of the funding, I'm going to give this one a check because it does seem that it's funded by a reputable, reliable source. And that's it for support.